It's Monday, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 50 Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And ladies and gentlemen, I am the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of just blatant journalistic deception here in the state of New Jersey, and certainly the most handsome face that runs the place. That's right. It's me, folks. Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday. We're closing out the month, and in just a few days, it's gonna be May. If you get that pop culture reference, hey, kudos to you, of course. And I want to thank you all for joining from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on the Jersey First YouTube page, and of course on all of our social media platforms. Speaking of them, of course, can't say enough, ladies and gentlemen, how grateful we all are here at Jersey First for your support on social media. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like us on Facebook, of course, Jersey First and Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Certainly make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Those are the handles there. And of course, I'm sure you're always watching YouTube for something. Click the subscribe button and you'll be automatically notified of all the excellent content brought to you by Jersey First. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you anywhere at any time, especially during these beautiful warm days. Again, as we are approaching the month of May, hey, whether you're visiting your in-laws, going to the grocery store, going for a run, visiting your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, folks, I'm sure you have your smartphone with you. Check out Jersey First TV when you are out there. And folks, I can't say enough how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's always Jersey First TV, educating and advocating for the residents of New Jersey. Of course, brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday night on jerseyfirst.org/TV, and of course also on YouTube, and also brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap, hosted by AJ Malillo and Stephen Rombolo, premiere every Thursday as well. And every Monday night, again, check your local listings. You get a brand new episode of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe right here on Jersey First TV. Folks, I gotta tell you, you definitely want to stick around for final thoughts because I'm gonna have a lot to say about one of the more insufferable women in New Jersey politics, as if there isn't enough already. Let's count one more, folks. Former Assemblywoman Sadaf Jaffer. And certainly I'll let you know what makes her so unbearable and insufferable in this political climate. You definitely want to stick around for final thoughts, because I'm looking to take Sadaf to task on just, let's be honest, being a blatant anti-Semite, but more on that later. But folks, it is election season, and certainly, you know what? I'm talking to all the candidates possible, whether incumbents or candidates. And, especially, being a conservative in New Jersey is kind of tough. The establishment media really doesn't give any attention to conservative and or Republican candidates. Of course, we all know who the guilty parties are, right? Uncle Dave, David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News, certainly Tommy Boy, Tom Moran with the Star Ledger editorial board via NJ.com. Of course, we all know that conservatives never get a fair shake at Insider NJ. Obviously, we got Max Pizarro, who maybe does work, 2-3 times a year, maybe leaves his house once or twice a year. But of course, all the other propagandists on Insider NJ, as well as the New Jersey Monitor, with Little Terrence McDonald, and of course, also Chucky with Charles Style with NordJersey.com. Folks, we all know that the establishment media doesn't care about conservatives or Republicans in New Jersey, but that's not the case on this program. We'll always be talking to candidates all throughout the election season, and tonight is no different. Joining me now, folks, he is a candidate for the House of Representatives in New Jersey's 6th Congressional District, and he's also an attorney and apparently a big fan of the show. Folks, let's welcome Greg Mele to Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Greg, how are you?
Hey, all right, sir. How are you doing? Great to be on. Thanks so much.
Hey, listen, thank you more, Greg. And certainly, folks, get more in line with the 6th Congressional District, certainly. Now, Greg, just curious here for our audience, maybe isn't familiar with the 6th Congressional District, what municipalities and counties really are encompassed within CD6?
Well, generally speaking, it's the northern and eastern part of Middlesex County, more than half of the county, and then the Bay Shore on the north end and down the eastern shore a little ways in Monmouth County. And that pretty much covers it. It goes down as far as Asbury Park, Neptune area.
Oh, nice areas, especially as the weather gets warmer. You definitely want to be down those neck of the woods, as they say.
Yeah, today was a good day for it.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So,
Yeah.
Greg, let's get to it here. Certainly an election year, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs. Obviously, all 11 congressional districts up for grabs in New Jersey. We're looking at CD6, a little bit of a crowded field. I know that you do have an opponent, I believe, in the primary, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But quite frankly, what prompted you to want to run to win perhaps a seat in the House of Representatives in the 6th congressional district?
Well, I mean, I have had a couple of other runs to kind of build up to this, and the support has grown over the last handful of years. So it seemed like a natural progression. In fact, I did start this cycle as a Senate candidate, and interestingly enough, you had a hand on, perhaps unknowingly, but maybe you'll recall, in a change in my life for the better and a change in direction. There were several people who signed up for the Senate race after the new year, which, I mean, to me, that's about a year too late. But nonetheless, we had a flood of candidates go in there. And so the conventions were just starting, and you had put out a post that you were interested in doing a Senate candidate debate from the Republican side, including 4 of us. And I happened to be one of the 4 that you named. So thank you for that, because that did get noticed. I had a couple of the, I would say, more senior folks in the party contact me soon after that and say, well, they have a couple of front runners they feel will be the ones to get there. And they were hoping to thin the field a little more in order to kind of, I guess, solidify that, where the support was for the couple of those candidates. And somehow my being in your list of 4 there gave me a little bit more viability in the eyes of those folks. So when they called me, they said, we have a couple of districts that don't have so many folks in there, or not as strong candidates, not well-known candidates, and would I consider to help the party and try to redirect my energies where, it could be more fruitful and possibly, really make a bigger difference. And one of them was CD6. And I actually had started a run there a couple of years ago, and turned out that we couldn't get started fast enough because I had come off something the November before. And again, like, for me, that's kind of late to get going for the new cycle for this level of office, at least. So when I thought about it, I knew I had built up some friends in CD6. So I thought, yeah, maybe this is the time. I mean, originally with the Senate, it was also a personal goal of get Bob Menendez out, because I always thought he was too corrupt. And especially once he was out of the running, really, then it was a lot easier also to consider a switch. So, I've reconnected with all the folks I met the first time around. And, we've had a couple of runs, like I said, where we've built up the infrastructure of a campaign. I mean, early on, I didn't do fundraising. I didn't do a lot of different things. I learned a couple of elements at a time as I was, getting my feet wet. And now we have a full-fledged team. We have a full-fledged operation, and we've been reaching out, and nobody is giving us sort of a negative view of what we're putting out there for folks, except, of course, the opponent and his folks, but that's to be expected.
Folks, if you're just joining us right now, it is 6:11 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is a candidate for the 6th Congressional District here in New Jersey, coming up during primary on June the 4th. He is Greg Mele, joining us here on Real Talk. Greg, interesting. I mean, obviously, again, I don't know how to take that. I guess you're welcome. I guess, when it comes to
very much so
January. But it's interesting. I mean, we'll get back to your campaign in a moment. But you raised an interesting point about the current U.S. Senator, obviously the senior United States Senator, obviously under indictment. He's awaiting trial in just a few weeks. Actually, I think 2 weeks from tomorrow. As a matter of fact, I think his trial will be beginning. Yep. And coincidentally, maybe his run as an independent could help Republicans down the line in November, should his trial end later on this spring or so. Again, he has to be either acquitted or a hung jury again. I mean, if he's convicted, obviously he can't run.
Right.
But certainly, if he is acquitted and or a hung jury does occur, like last again, all it takes is one juror, folks, to believe that the FBI is corrupt and that the U.S. attorneys are out to get somebody. I mean, that's not unheard of, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but in any event, should he run as an independent? I mean, that could favor Republicans maybe this November. We'll see. But getting back to CD6, though, Greg, I have to ask you. I mean, you look at a district that, again, I think the biggest issues facing that district, like anywhere else in New Jersey, I would say, again, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where I'll put on my academic hat on right now, looking at infrastructure, looking at constituent services, looking at basically federal dollars coming back to the district to help either students, seniors alike. Are these issues, I think, that are pressing in the 6th congressional district? Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, there was one announcement, and typical for an election year, for a few of the districts in the state, there have been announcements by the Democratic incumbents of getting some federal funds back to their districts for various projects. There was a waterfront project in 6.
What a surprise in an election year, right? My God.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. They throw a little bone back in the last year after 3 years of suffering, and then here we are. So hopefully not too many people will fall for that and think that that's going to continue. But that's something that certainly there are other projects that people are hoping for more. But the biggest problem with those givebacks is that it's a small part of very large spending packages that are going elsewhere, and as we see lately, a lot of it out of the country, which is not a thrilling thing either.
Sure. I usually don't like to mention opponents' names, but I gotta say it on the air. I mean, Frank Pallone is one of the more insufferable people in the House of Representatives. I mean, other than the walking corpse up in Passaic County near Patterson, we all know what I'm talking about here. But Frank Pallone, again, sort of reminds me of like this poster child for like the career politician, the guy that's been there forever, the guy that loves to virtue signal on all the typical nonsense, right? Weaponizes reproductive rights during election season, loves to weaponize immigration or vilify conservatives that like me that are like, hey, please close the border. Let's stop this ridiculous invasion, because that's what it is, of illegals into New Jersey. And it just seems like Frank Pallone, every election cycle, sure, he can raise money, but I just think his act is getting super old like him. And, when you look at that, though, Greg, again, the first question or first concern I would have, or anyone, is how are you doing fundraising wise? Because we all know that Frank Pallone just opens his mouth and the usual virtual signaling organizations like, garbage unions like the NJEA, CWA, will just sort of, bow at the altar and kiss the ring for Frankie. How are you doing with fundraising, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, well, I mean, in general, so the startup was really self-funded for the most part, and now we've started to kick into higher gear in terms of the fundraising. We've got our infrastructure now, like I said, fully in place for a little bit. And actually last year, I mean, it was there already, but the main thing about fundraising in a previous cycle is, I feel one of my principles is focus on helping other candidates. So that's what I did through November last year, and self-funded whatever activities I did otherwise, which was a slow ramp up. Like I said, that's how I like to do it. And so, yeah, I mean, we're talking to a bunch of PACs that are talking about sending some funds over. And of course, we have a lot of folks, boots on the ground, from my last few years, actually, of involvement with the party and helping with other candidates, other campaigns, and events, things like that. So we've got some good support, and with the self-funding I'm able to do, I mean, we're certainly ready to outpace the competition in the primary, at least. And then as far as Frank Pallone, I mean, he tends to have opponents that are the GOP sort of handpicked folks. And a lot of times they're not given a lot of help because the GOP just writes that race off. And for whatever reason, they seem to think that for many years now that Pallone is unbeatable. I think a couple of things have changed this year that make that more of a question mark. He's certainly tied to the Biden policies, which have been an utter disaster. So that is helpful. Also, the student protests with Hamas. He's like Biden, not able to really effectively toe the line on both sides, and give them what they want in terms of support for Hamas and the Gaza, Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And so there's some fight there. And, like anyone else, although he's been around a long time and he's managed that, but that just means every cycle he's that much older, and maybe it's time to get somebody with new ideas. Now, I always had a philosophy about like who's a good opponent or what kind of demographic or really background of a candidate can beat someone like that. I always feel you don't want someone who's a carbon copy of who's there, and you don't want someone who's total opposite. You want somebody who, for example, here, he's got years of experience as an elected official. You don't want to, and also dealing with the public. You don't want to sacrifice all that. So you don't want someone that's totally new that doesn't have any of that. And on the other side of it, bringing the expertise that I have been trying to share with everyone. I don't think there's so much of a sacrifice there as it is with my opponent. So I feel like, I'm still young enough. I mean, I'm going to be 59 next week. I still have time. And I also have a plan. Actually, my friend Billy Prempa has promoted this plan as far as voluntary term limiting ourselves. It's the 8-10-12 plan. 10 is the one that applies to the House of Representatives as the most years that I would hope to do this job. I want to do my contribution. Hopefully I'll have that opportunity. And then after that, though, it's time to step aside. I mean, I do hear many millennials talking about when are we going to be in charge? And well, I'm Gen X. I haven't had, we haven't had, I should say, our turn yet. But sure. Nonetheless, I feel like it's time to start getting the lifers in politics out, make a transition, and the time will come for everybody to have their turn the way it should be. And term limits is the best way to do that. I mean, even if folks voting like someone and would want to keep them longer, the bottom line is the longer you're in that role and thinking that you may not have to ever face what the laws you write as a private citizen again, you're not going to write as good laws because you're not going to worry about it if it's not going to affect you. So there's always that incentive if you term limit yourself, or if they eventually can get actually something passed, that you always have to keep in mind, this is going to affect you and your family just as much as everybody else. There's an incentive for folks who might otherwise be tempted to go ahead and do the better thing.
Fair enough. Listen, I'm with you on term limits, and coincidentally, you mentioned Billy Prempa. He'll be on in later on in the month of May here on Real Talk. You definitely want to keep it, mark that on your calendar. Obviously, coming up later in mid-May. But great. Listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I think term limits are important. Listen, I'm not too eager to see anybody from Gen Z running for office. I mean, they can't even decide what gender they are. So, I mean, again, I'm not exactly trusting these kids today. Especially what we're seeing on college campuses, and more on that later. I really want to get your thoughts on that. Sure. But there's a good point about Pallone having to run on, obviously, notwithstanding the line being done away with, at least for Democrats this year in New Jersey for the primary. But Frank Pallone has to run on this Biden record, which has been an absolute disaster. Inflation continues to suffocate Americans. The cost of food, fuel, really vacations, airline tickets. I mean, everything has gone up exponentially under this president, right? I mean, we could not be as dependent on foreign oil by drilling domestically, but again, Sleepy Joe, unfortunately, would prefer to virtue signal to the Progressive Caucus and the Democrat Party about drilling and not drilling domestically and everything else, as opposed to like importing oil. Obviously, it's interesting when the president of the United States, and I'm sure Frank Pallone will obviously, gladly clap along like a seal at the circus waiting for the next piece of fish about the border. When we all know, again, folks, all it takes is a quick Google search. Joe Biden, right on inauguration in January 20th of 2021, basically the executive order undid all of President Trump's
Mm-hmm.
policies on the border, and thus this is why we're seeing this invasion at the border. And now somehow Joe Biden is acting surprised about the borders being out of control. And well, we need to fix the border. It was fine before you completely destroyed it. And it seems like Frank Pallone is happy to enable Joe Biden and just cheer along when he's been an enabler too of bad immigration policies too, Greg.
Yeah, no, and between that level and also within New Jersey in particular, and you see the rules about a lot of towns having to put in the lower income housing. I mean, they're looking to get these folks in, get a way for them to somehow vote. That's what they care about, and they don't mind charging us our tax money to be able to fund that until people are screaming like they are in some of the bigger cities now that have had more people come in. So, and I just also want to mention, since you talk about the oil, I mean, also on the first day, he cut off the Keystone Pipeline, and then not long after, he figures out that he's got to draw from the strategic reserve. Well, that's compounding. That's, I think, on one hand, acknowledging the first one as a mistake, but then compounding it by going to the emergency reserve instead of just reopening the projects, reopening the pipelines, getting everything drilled the way we know we can, and that we did under President Trump.
Fair enough. No, absolutely on that one. And, you brought up the NJGOP, and I think you'll probably take the high road here, Greg. I don't have to. But I don't have any faith in the NJGOP. I think we've seen that in the last couple of cycles. It's been disappointing. And, expecting, at least in my eyes, though, Greg, expecting the NJGOP to do any sort of work during this election season, it's sort of like asking establishment media people like Max Pizarro and Jay Lasseter and David Cruz and Tom Moran to stop being clowns. It's like they can't help themselves. Mm. It seems like the NJGOP can't help itself either, with not being, I think, as helpful as they could be when it comes to elections. Case in point, I mean, listen, last year during the legislative season, obviously we had a lot of municipal races and Board of Ed races. It was an absolute joke. Okay. Candidates that won at municipal levels and Board of Ed races, they won not because of support from the NJGOP, they won in spite of them. And it just seems like, again, and I know he doesn't like me and I don't care, but Chairman Bob Hugin, again, as an academic, I have to grade people and grade exams or whatever. I have to give Bob Hugin an F. He's not been a good chair. We're losing legislative seats. I mean, there's some Republicans that are vulnerable, Republican incumbents that are vulnerable during this election cycle because, again, the NJGOP to sort of use a sports term for all you sports fans out there, it's like they're getting to the goal line. Oh, there's the end zone. They either get stopped at the one, or they fumble the ball, the other team gets possession, or they fumble it out of the end zone and it's a touchback possession for the other team. That's how I look at the NJGOP, Greg. Am I being too cruel and harsh?
I mean, what I would say is certainly, and this part's not unlike a lot of other groups, but I mean, you have folks who genuinely care and are genuinely trying, and there are folks who are more worried about their own little piece of the pie or their fiefdom, as some people refer to it a lot of times in this political conversation. There are folks who are more worried about retaining what they have, whatever they think it is, instead of being more for the team. And that's why, I mean, one of the things I said earlier, when I got the call and asked to be a team player, I mean, those were a couple of folks who, I mean, there's a wide spectrum even within the GOP in terms of the more moderate versus the more true conservative, that kind of thing. And so I don't agree with the policies of a lot of folks. I mean, I do tend to be more on the conservative side. I'm the America First candidate, and but I mean, I still have friends across that spectrum within the party, but I also know some folks that have just put up roadblocks wherever possible to have any chance of really winning and being competitive. And the more you're not competitive, the longer it will take to eventually win, because the resources don't get there. You don't have the resources in between cycles to build up the popularity of particular candidates. And, to some degree, you also have people who are giving the favor, at least under this line system, giving favorable treatment to people who are more inclined to say, I will do whatever they tell me. It's one thing that my opponent said recently, in fact, and that was very disappointing for a lot of folks when they heard that, because you really need leadership, and to me, that's following. So, I mean, talking about the line situation for a minute, I mean, I am proud to say I am the first Republican who spoke out publicly against the line. Back in December, I was part of a panel that was exploring all that issue and the office block ballot layout that's been proposed instead. And it was the three Democrats in the Senate race now, so other than the governor's wife, and myself, who had put out press releases at that time talking about how it is an unfair advantage. It also just invites corruption. And that's why, I mean, like I said, there's some folks that I really admire and respect in the party, and including some of the leadership, where they do everything to try to make it a better party, reach more people, and get our philosophy out there. And then there are some that are just like, they want that puppet, and whatever arrangement they need to make, it's just counterproductive. That person is never going to win.
Greg, listen, great point there in the sense of the county line discussion, because obviously we know that based on the court decision, it only affects Democrats during this primary. Obviously, the county line is essentially abolished. That's not the case. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor, but that's not the case for Republicans. So for all intents and purposes, whoever won county conventions would be getting those lines in the Republican primary. In your case, in your specific race in the 6th congressional district, what can you tell us about your opponent in the sense of what separates you two?
Well, I mean, in terms of in general, like, the policy stances and what have you. I mean, first of all, I always come, whenever I talk about any particular issue, I come with a solution in mind, and I state my proposals of, this is the problem. Realistically, perhaps I'll say, certain avenue, it might look good, but it's not going to work, because of some other reason. But this is the avenue that probably is going to be more fruitful and at least get us closer to where we need to be. Those kinds of things. I've not heard anything like that from my opponent. All it is kind of the, I'm for this, I'm against that, and no real explanation of anything, no plan. I mean, I have, besides the educational background and the experience for that matter, and it's all been wrapped around that kind of exploring, how budgets work in the public sector, that kind of thing, how we can find better solutions for certain agencies and projects, programs, things like that. I'm always looking at return on investment, because I do have a lot of involvement in business over the years, in addition to the legal end. But we have two ways to look at ROI. It's the financial part, of course, but it's also, like, for example, a program, what does it do to people? If you have, for example, a very high benefit program, does it disincentivize people from working, keeping their skills fresh? Do they become non-contributing people to society? Because the risk there then is they're not self-sufficient, which is one of the primary things I want to do for as many people as possible should I get into the office. They become dependent lapdogs. And the problem is, like every example in history of socialism and communism, eventually the money runs out, and then the government doesn't really have any way to help and doesn't really worry about it, because they've gotten their money, and those people who now aren't current with their skills or whatever else, they're not able to survive on their own anymore. And I don't want to get us any closer than we already are to something like that. I think we need to make an about face. We need to bring back the free market competition, get rid of the crony capitalism, certainly. But other than that, let capitalism do its thing, because it really works.
It's interesting about freedom, though, right, Greg? People like to sort of evoke freedom when it suits them. And just to sort of get back to the county line discussion for a minute, because it's really intriguing to me. If anything, this really neutralizes and weakens county chairs, both Republicans and Democrats alike, that have had way too much power and influence on primaries. And you would think that Republicans, again, conservatives like me, who are always about evoking freedom, would have been much more assertive in getting the county line abolished for this primary season, where, hey, again, let's give everybody an equal opportunity instead of just like the county chairs. Or, and let's be honest also too, I mean, a lot of these county conventions aren't exactly almost the most fair process either. I think we've seen what happens, both Republicans and Democrats alike. We've seen how sometimes county conventions can keep people out. It can be very exclusionary. And I would argue that, again, being the last state in the country to engage in this practice, I would argue that it's a breath of fresh air, I think, moving forward when it comes to elections in New Jersey. Listen, next year, for example, we have a gubernatorial race. We're going to have a lot of municipal races. We're also going to have all the assembly seats up for grabs next year in New Jersey. So if anything, I would argue that abolishing the county line only helps people want to run for these offices, that want to run, that don't get discouraged because, oh, well, the county chair, I'm not on his or her good side. Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't run. I would argue that if anything, this is going to empower more people to run.
Yeah, no, and I mean, as an example, as far as the exclusion aspect of it, and this is actually the second time that I was not allowed to get the committee list to be able to reach out and get separate signatures that were required in one of the counties I'm in, and so I couldn't attend the convention. It was eliminated before I could even get there and say my piece. So that's difficult. But also, just to go back, besides my press release in December about that, I also did wind up joining a case. It was unfortunate in a lot of ways to a few folks in the Republican side who really wanted to see the line abolished. I mean, for me as an attorney, when Andy Kim filed his suit and the other folks who joined him, basically, I mean, that question wasn't, is the county line unconstitutional for Democrats? Is it unconstitutional? There's never been a case that I can recall, at least in any modern era, certainly, where something's been unconstitutional for some. Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. And I mean, that was the disappointment with the federal judge in terms of trying to differentiate that. I mean, standing has nothing to do with it. If it's an unconstitutional practice, it should be abolished across the board. And tell you the truth, I mean, once that case was filed, I mean, I wasn't on speaking terms or first name basis with Andy Kim, as you probably imagine. So, he didn't check with me before he filed to see if I wanted to join him on that case. And, after it was filed, I mean, I certainly thought, and a lot of my colleagues in the legal profession certainly thought that if it was unconstitutional, it would be across the board. They never even imagined. In fact, when one of the county chairs asked to clarify that question, I mean, everybody I knew laughed out loud. I mean, it was just like, come on, that's silly. Of course it has to apply to everybody. Yeah. But then the judge turned around and said that. That was really shocking. And right after that, then myself and a few others started our state court suit to try to make it. And interestingly, the judge, I think he was hoping that the circuit court on the other case would come back and affirm quickly that it was unconstitutional. He was trying to hold out for a day or two, but then he gave up on it and said, oh, it's just simply too late, which is also not a good decision in my opinion. I feel like, even if, and I don't know this to be the case at all, but even if you try to say like, oh, well, we're going to fall behind schedule getting ballots out and all this kind of stuff, there is certainly precedent for pushing back the primary if we really needed to do that to get the right result. So to me, that was political cover maybe that he was looking for or whatever else. But 3 days later, the circuit court confirmed that it was unconstitutional. And I don't know why. I mean, he said in the hearing, the state court judge, that, oh, he would keep it open again in case that came down, but then we didn't hear anything about it. So it became effectively too late now because nobody's making the decision to push back that election for this year. However, I mean, I'm still going to be staying involved in that because I feel like that is a crucial thing to encourage. Just like you said, the better candidates are the ones who get discouraged with a system like the county line. And you would hope that the Republican leadership would want the best candidates. But again, it's a mixed bag. Some certainly do, some do not.
No, fair enough. Greg, let me ask you this, because I know that potentially should you win the primary coming up on June 4th, your opponent the incumbent, always seems to love weaponizing reproductive rights during election season. And we know that the Dobbs decision has been something of a firing, I guess, a hot rod, a rallying call for Democrats, liberals, progressives collectively. Listen, I'm not an attorney, I'm an academic, but, I remember studying constitutional law, reading about it again as an academic in U.S. history. We know that, at least in my opinion, I didn't have a problem with the Dobbs decision. I like it going back to the states, let the states decide. And it's always funny. I get someone like Frank Pallone and his fellow members in the Democrat Party within the House of Representatives always seem to every election season want to weaponize abortion and reproductive rights about, well, first of all, here in New Jersey, it's codified to state law. But it doesn't stop people like Frank Pallone from weaponizing it or sensationalizing it. Well, we both know, again, I'm not the attorney, you are, that Dobbs' decision, I think, on its face value is correct. Let the state, again, somewhere along the line, folks, again, the 10th Amendment, hold on a second, it's coming to me. Federalism, yes, states' rights. Okay, well, well, then let's let the states govern themselves. Again, the framers hundreds of years ago knew that too much centralized power in the federal government was a bad thing. Let the states govern themselves. And we've seen that, though, right? We've seen states establish, obviously, some bans. Some states have tried to sign into law 6-week bans, things of that nature. It's been a polarizing, though, issue, Greg, at least. Again, it's something that maybe Democrats like Frank Pallone might want to weaponize and say, hey, you know what? If we let Republicans keep the House and Republicans win the Senate, then guess what? A 6-week ban might happen nationally. Even the 45th president sort of walked back his support of it and has been more about, listen, let the states dictate. And obviously, to some extent, I mean, it's been a little catastrophic because it seems to backfire for some Republicans. Do you think Republicans like you and others can avoid this weaponization that seems to come around every election cycle about reproductive rights, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot that can be done, and at the outset, you're right. It's all in the messaging. I mean, we know that this is now a states' rights issue, and in the time of Roe v. Wade, there were movements in a few areas in terms of trying to unify on a federal level whatever kinds of rights for people out of convenience, where, it's easier if everybody has the same rule everywhere on this thing and that thing. But it's true, it's not the correct legal decision in terms of how the Constitution is structured. So you have your enumerated powers and you have the states' rights to everything else. And if you look at that decision exactly as it is, like you said, then you'll see that doesn't sacrifice anything. I mean, if you happen to be in a more red state where it becomes more restrictive, well, the solution is, if you want it differently, is vote those folks out and try to get enough people to be like-minded with you. In the end, I think having the different rules is exactly how it was meant to be. Now, in New Jersey, of course, we have a very blue state to the extent of the abortion rights. And I mean, in my personal feeling, I think it goes way too far in terms of that. I think it's irresponsible for something where someone should be the most responsible possibly in their life to make that life-altering decision. In my opinion, it is. That if there is any window of abortion right, that it needs to be something really as reasonably short as possible to make it where people deal with their issues and their responsibilities. I would prefer a shorter time than a longer time. I do have the rape and incest and life of the mother exceptions in my mind as far as reasonable. But other than that, I mean, once you find out that you're pregnant, I mean, I think full attention has to be paid to that, and a plan has to be put together. I'd rather more people do the adoption route and keep the baby, but we're always going to have folks on the other side of that aisle. So I think it's going to settle somewhere in the middle.
Greg, just to be clear a little bit, I know you have a preference of it being shorter than later, but it seems like a lot of the debate circles around nationally about maybe 6 weeks is too soon.
Mhm.
Again, counselor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if 6 weeks is too soon in the sense of maybe, reaching a compromise, what would be a more realistic or reasonable expectation of time, let's say for you?
Well, and that's exactly right. It's like what's going to be the time frame that you can get a significant majority buy-in, right? Because you need the 60 to get it on the floor and have a
Sure.
chance to pass it. I mean, first I'll say just generally, yeah. I mean, as short as can have that consensus, but I mean, I suspect that it would wind up somewhere in the 12 to 15 week, maybe something
Okay.
like that is what I expect could happen if anything does. Being such a third rail issue, you may not get 60 folks in the voting, or 60% to bring it at any level nationally. We may not see a federal abortion law of any kind, one direction or the other. But if it does happen, yeah, I mean, I think it would be, ideally something that, again, puts personal responsibility back on folks to really deal with their life issues that are so important, and not just for them. I mean, we're talking about, in this case, an innocent life, right? So, I mean, it matters beyond yourself sometimes. And this is one of the things, I mean, you talked about in the employment context about like Gen Z or the election context before. I mean, the truth is, in every aspect of life, what's been lost ever since the Democrats took control of the education systems, by and large,
Yeah, fair.
is instilling the personal responsibility and saying that you don't get to have whatever you want every time and without ever having any consequence. Your life decisions matter. There are consequences, and they have to learn that. And it's the same thing with the protests now, that
Sure.
now suddenly they're crying about, suspensions or whatever from school or whatever. Well, that's what happens when you take a stand that, certainly is not within the bounds of, for example, the law in terms of, the gatherings, with the violent rhetoric and all that stuff. That's not protected speech. So there has to be a consequence to teach people that that's the case. Unfortunately for the younger folks of today, many have been brought up to think that there is no consequence and there never should be, and they should be able to do whatever the hell they want kind of attitude. And then it's really hard for them. That's the thing. I mean, when you instill rules with children early on as part of raising them, it's not such a shocker when they grow up and get out into the world and find out, yeah, there's other people to consider. There's respect for other people. There's
Sure.
integrity. There's character. There's all these other things that serve to limit the freedom of animals being out in the wild kind of alternative. That doesn't exist for people. And, we have a world that's civilized, or it should be. And we have to work with each other, all of us, with respect and dignity.
Greg, I'll say it out loud. Again, I know you'll take the high road, counselor, but from what I'm seeing, progressives make really crappy parents, clearly, and we're seeing it in many facets, at least in my opinion. But let me get back to an issue here. Again, should you win the primary coming up on June 4th, and then hopefully it'd be nice to defeat Frank Pallone and send his ass out of here in New Jersey, maybe have him retire in Florida somewhere. But another issue I think that is going to get really a lot of attention during this election cycle, though, Greg, is immigration and the border. And, should you be victorious, again, June 4th, and then going on to the fall to defeat Frank Pallone, what would you like to do, again, upon taking office in January of 2025, January 1st, if I'm not mistaken? What would you like to at least tackle or engage in when it comes to border security, and either fund more border patrol agents, or again, how do you want to tackle the border should you be a member of the House of Representatives?
Right. And I do consider that at this point the number one issue across the board. I mean, there are so many important things, but it's the fentanyl, it's the human trafficking, it's the terror threat from all these folks coming in. But I mean, the first thing that I would say, I would want to say quite clearly, is the existing immigration law itself, I think, has been fine in a couple of aspects, in terms of, first of all, no illegal immigration should occur. It's illegal. There's no allowance for a certain level of it. And that's what they were trying to put into the bill that didn't go through recently. But, you have zero allowable illegal immigration, and also just in terms of the process for admitting people legally. The law and the steps that are involved in that, I don't have so much of a problem with. It's all the executive orders and the execution from the executive that's just not there now, where it was under President Trump. And again, all the the Title 42, the Remain in Mexico, all that stuff should be back in place. First of all, that did wonders, and front and center finish the wall. I would even look at a northern wall, but certainly the southern has to be done as soon as possible. The reduction in the illegal immigration was tremendous. And the other part of the problem in terms of what some states are trying to do in terms of sanctuary and giving people benefits, things like that, I mean, that's only encouraging more people to try to get here where, through the illegal way, instead of understanding. I mean, yes, in terms of, for example, on the legal immigration side, where you talk about family sponsored immigration, I mean, yes, I'm fine with folks being vetted in the proper way and passing the tests and all this other stuff to get here with a family sponsor. But sometimes, yes, it does take many, many years, and that's a funding issue in terms of having the staff to process those folks. But if they can pass all of the rules as far as legal immigration, I think that's worked very well. And that's the kind of immigrant that has, for example, in the past built this country, is the legal immigrants who followed the rules, came here with nothing but didn't ask for anything, and just worked hard and decided they were going to contribute. And then whatever reward came for them, that was fine. The folks now that come illegally, they have a lottery mentality. They're just looking to get as much free stuff as they can. And basically it turns into a free-for-all. So, now we have, because of the invitation to come that has been so obvious from President Biden and his administration, now they want to, keep coming in more and more droves just to take instead of to give.
Great, folks, if you're just joining us right now, it's 6:48 here on the East Coast. Click that share button because sharing is caring. Our guest tonight is the candidate in the 6th Congressional District for the Republican Party in the state of New Jersey. His name is Greg Mele. Join us here tonight on Real Talk. Greg, let me ask you this as well, because I know that June 4th, it's here. It'll be here before you know it. But
right.
Any plans, or has there been any discussion whatsoever as to whether you and your primary opponent are willing to entertain a debate online? Obviously, I'm always willing to moderate these debates. I have done that. I've moderated town halls. Any desire to want to debate your opponent, or have you heard anything about your opponent wanting to debate you?
Well, we actually put out a challenge a couple of weeks ago, and we had the Rutgers Republicans lined up to host it and moderate initially. We never heard back, and I'm of the mind, sort of like President Trump says, anytime, anywhere. I'm fine to do that. I would love to do that. I don't believe my opponent is interested. He's riding the line, and that's the one way that he still stays in the conversation, and so he's going to ride that out as much as he can and try to keep quiet otherwise, I think. But we've challenged him, and kept asking every couple of days or whatever for those couple of weeks, and no, not so much as a response of any kind. So if he's watching and he wants to do this, let's do it.
Well, let me ask this again, and I don't want to step on the toes of my alma mater, Rutgers University. They're Rutgers Republicans, a former member myself. And it's great Chairman Jeremy Lee. But would that be an in-person debate, or would it also be remote in the sense?
I mean, I'm really fine with any format that works, but I'd certainly be happy to meet at a location and potentially have it broadcast out from there, or doing it this way. Anything would work. And certainly, Fernando, if you had time to help us with that, being a moderator, certainly we're on board with it. Whatever works.
Well, again, Greg, just sort of a disclaimer here as a policy, Jersey First doesn't endorse candidates, even though like sometimes I like to, sneak in my little, who I like and who I don't like. But listen, I'm more than, as a matter of fact, later on tonight after our broadcast, I'm more than happy to start reaching out. I mean, obviously, you're telling me you're receptive to it. I'll certainly reach out to your opponent. If we can make something happen online within the next couple of weeks, I mean, I think that would be great. I think debate's always important. Again, case in point, I mean, my good friend David Wasson, again, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, again, that's the gold standard of journalism in New Jersey. It's David Wasson. Sure enough, he was able to get on the Democrat side, Ravi Bala and Ram Menendez, coincidentally my guest last week here on the show, and their debate will take place live this Sunday, remotely online, coming up this Sunday, Cinco de Mayo on May the 5th. So, again, I'm nowhere near David Wasson and his influence, but certainly I know I can reach out to people and be like, hey, I'm a fair moderator. I've done a good job before. I ask good questions. I'm fair. I'm balanced. Again, not to borrow anyone's moniker. Listen, now you've motivated me. Now, with everything else in my busy schedule, let me try to see if I can pull this off. I know my bosses at Jersey First TV won't object to it. Let me see if I can get get this rolling maybe, and maybe try to get a debate going, not just in your district, because obviously there are other Republican districts I'd like to be able to host debates for as well. So we'll see, but I'll certainly try my best.
I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice if it was all around and any contested races. We really owe that to the voters. But like I said, I'm all in. I'm ready. We've been putting out the challenge now for a little while already, and we're ready to go. So if you can help to make it happen, we'd be very grateful.
Well, listen, New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist only has so much influence. We'll see. I'll certainly try to reach out to all the parties. Now, again, just for the record, again, because there's so many districts to keep track of, is it just you and your opponent right now, or are there other Republicans in the primary field, though, Greg?
No, just those two. That's it.
Okay. All right. Just making sure, because sometimes, again, it's hard to keep track of candidates everywhere. I mean, it's I don't have that sort of photogenic memory, even though I remember some obscure things sometimes. But before I let you go, though, man, again, you've been a gentleman to be on with me. As long as you have, I know you want to be out there knocking on doors, especially on a night like this. Why not? It's still daylight. But real quick, let's get to know Greg Mele, the guy, not just the candidate, but Greg Mele, the guy. Yankees or Mets?
It's been Mets as a direct result of my father being a Yankees. So when I was a kid, he was the old New York teams, and so I had to be the new ones just so we could have some fun at night watching the games and have a little rivalry. So I was Mets and Nets for a while, although we didn't follow basketball quite as much. What is it? The Jets.
Are you a Rangers fan, Islanders fan, or Devil fan?
Well, I've been a Devils fan for a long time, but I've always rooted for the Rangers when the Devils have been out for my father. Again, he was a Ranger fan.
Fair enough. Okay,
and he does the same for me too. Actually, when the Devils have gone further, he roots for them with me.
Okay, Giants or Jets?
I've actually moved more toward the Giants as opposed to when I was a kid, so I've joined him on that one.
Okay, interesting. Again, my dad's a big Jet fan. I'm a Cowboys fan, so there's always some healthy banter in the Uribe family for sure. DC Comics or Marvel Comics?
Wow. I haven't read any in a long time, but I guess Marvel probably would be the one from the movies for the movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially Marvel movies or DC movies, essentially.
Well, okay, yeah. See how much I know, but I mean, the Spider-Man, the Batman, those guys.
Oh, okay, all right, different genres. Okay, cool. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. Easily.
All right, good man. And again,
but let me just mention real quick on that.
Sure.
So they were trying to figure out a few years back, like what day should we pick for Star Wars Day? So what they did was they figured out that a young guy that was 12 years old when it first came out, probably the biggest fan, let's go with his birthday. So it's May 4th.
All right. And you know what? Coincidentally, this Saturday is May the 4th. So, of course, it's, folks, whether it's watching the marathon on TNT or watching on Disney Plus, again, this Saturday, we're all going to be happy to say May the 4th be with you. So we'll be very, very happy about that.
That's what's made my birthday that much better every year.
There we go. Happy birthday in advance to you, though, Greg.
Yeah.
Favorite cuisine? Italian, Cuban? What do you like?
Italian, followed closely by Chinese, which is my wife's background, actually, and I have the Italian background.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Favorite U.S. president?
Well, probably some of the usual: Washington, Lincoln, Reagan. Also, of course, President Trump, though.
Sure. Least favorite U.S. president?
Well, I think we're living that now. But I mean, Obama never fulfilled anything for anybody either, and Clinton was certainly a mess. Carter made childhood very rough with his economics and also his lack of international stance. So it's pretty much party line, and that's what made me what I am in terms of my thinking. It just seems so, all the Republican presidents were so much better in my lifetime than the Democrats. Every time things went backwards with Democratic presidents. So, but that's about right.
Last one here, and not to get you in trouble because of the district per se, but favorite beach to go to during the summer months?
Well, I probably can't tell you just one, but I love Sandy Hook. I love LBI, and also love where I'm going next, the weekend after next, for the rally in Wildwood. So I would say those are my hotter spots as far as really favorite beach spots to go to on any regularity.
Well, spoiler alert, you'll see New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist there at Wildwood on May 11th. So looking forward to that. And listen, hopefully it's good weather, and hopefully it's I anticipate a good crowd that Saturday. I don't think it's not going to be a Joe Biden rally.
No.
Or it's not going to be one of these, I don't know, just left-wing progressive rallies or something. I think it'll be a pretty healthy number of people in Wildwood, New Jersey on Saturday, May 11th, though, Greg.
Yep,
for sure.
It's going to be
Greg,
crazy.
Any social media handles, websites for our audience before I let you go?
Website, www.mele4america.com. It's MELE and then the number 4, America.com. And then the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is all at Mele4America. Same thing, last name and then the number 4, America.
Greg, you've been a gentleman. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think we tackled a lot of issues that really are so prevalent during this election cycle. I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you being a fan of Jersey First TV. Certainly, I'll give you the last word tonight.
Oh, first, again, thank you so much because it's not every chance you get to get out and talk to the voters, and certainly for an office like this. To get to every door, I mean, I don't know that anyone's ever been able to do that. So, I mean, much as I'd like to, but I just feel like, we need that change in leadership, obviously, at all levels. And, for my part, I mean, I did a lot of working 2 full-time jobs or working a full-time job and then going to night school to get some more degrees and things like that. And I mean, I mentioned this actually at a speech last night. I picked up an endorsement from the Protect Your Children group. I have about 14 endorsements from groups. And so I mentioned to them, when I was sacrificing all that time, the 2 jobs, whatever, going back to school a few times, it was all with the idea of helping, and I'll point at the camera as the viewing public, to help you. I spent my entire life sacrificing just in the hope that I would have a chance to do good through public office and make life better for as many people as I could reach. And, a congressional district, I mean, that's a lot of people. So I could only be humbled by it at the thought of it. And I hope you'll send your vote my way.
Folks, he is Greg Mele, running for the House of Representatives in the 6th Congressional District. Might not be the last time you see me online, though, Greg. I'm going to get to work, and hopefully we'll see if candidates want to debate leading up to the June 4th primary. We'll see you soon here on Jersey First TV. Thank you so much, Greg. God bless you. Again, may the 4th be with you. Happy birthday in advance, and we'll talk again soon here on Jersey First TV.
Thanks again so much. Good to see you as always, and look forward to next time.
Take care now.
You too.
Folks. Great episode there with Greg Mele, running for the House of Representatives in the 6th Congressional District. certainly an uphill battle like it is for any Republican and conservative in New Jersey, in such a blue state. But certainly you have to love his energy. You have to love the tenacity. And again, folks, we'll do our best here on Jersey First TV, try to get a debate going between him and his opponent. And certainly with June 4th, still a little over a month away, not unrealistic to try to, organize a debate between primary candidates. Because again, shouldn't we want this? Shouldn't we want some open dialogue and discussion about candidates running in a primary, whether they're Democrats or Republicans? I think debates is something we should be embracing. And hopefully, let's see if we can get that done coming up in the next few weeks here on Jersey First TV. Folks, before we call it a night, it's 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. But before we call it an evening, you know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. And folks, listen, I talk about it on this program quite often. The amount of insufferable women in New Jersey politics, whether in elected government or in activism, right? And we all know who they are. I mean, I love to roast them on a regular basis because of how insufferable they are, right? And again, folks, it's no secret. I mean, we all know the sort of, obvious list of insufferable women in New Jersey politics, right? In media and activism, right? They include Jay Lassiter, again, one of the more insufferable women in New Jersey. Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, another insufferable woman, another hysteric, right? Julie Larea Borst, of course, another insufferable woman, right? Loretta Weinberg, good riddance to her sorry ass in the state legislature, another insufferable woman in New Jersey politics, right? Sue Altman, a defund the police, left-wing radical, again, another insufferable woman in New Jersey politics, right? Of course, Corinne Frankfurt, another reason why New York is in the dumps, obviously, working with Democrats in the state legislature in Albany. Any reason you ever have to wonder why why New York City is in the mess that it's in, you can always rely on women like Corinne Frankfurt, right? But of course, this list of insufferable women just increased by one because, of course, another insufferable woman in New Jersey politics, and one that really just boils my blood, folks, okay? It's Sadaf Jaffer. Y'all remember she was the former assemblywoman in the 16th legislative district, thankfully no longer there, but folks, at Gore, in just one term, certainly did enough damage to irritate all of us. But the reason, folks, that, I look at someone like Sadaf Jaffer, right, as another insufferable woman in New Jersey politics, again, to join the list I just compiled, right, is looking at her Twitter feed. Actually was brought to my attention. I'll certainly bring it to yours as well, folks. Okay. Here's a tweet from her from recently over the weekend. Were we supposed to consider Megyn Kelly a serious journalist at some point? Question mark. She is hate and fear mongering simply at the sight of Muslim prayer. There have been prayers from many different religions at the protests. Contending with so much hate from so many sides is exhausting. Of course, she's referencing Megyn Kelly, former Fox News host and current journalist, right? Host of a very, very good podcast, if you haven't seen it, right? Where she writes, cool, enjoy the Sharia. Well, let me just give you an idea of what Megyn Kelly was referencing.
Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Okay. You get the picture, right? Okay. Just making sure, folks. Okay. Now, these are students, right, who are all about embracing Sharia law, right? Engaging in Muslim prayer. Again, full disclosure, Sadaf Jaffer is a Muslim woman. Right? Maybe someone should go tell her, because maybe she's forgotten. I don't know how long ago it was that she read the Quran. I know I've read the book, and I can tell you, folks. Right? that Sharia law doesn't allow you to dance with the opposite gender. And that's what we've been seeing on college campuses, right? We've been seeing dancing and celebrations and sort of in very sort of anti-Semitic rhetoric that's been sort of surfacing around. Again, Sharia law doesn't allow you to dance with the opposite gender. And of course, also, oh, by the way, music is illegal under Sharia law. Oh, and by the way, under Sharia law, also women need to be accompanied by a male relative. They just can't be out in public, right? So women, again, it's interesting to maybe define what a woman is now, right? Of all times, right? But that's what's going on our college campuses, okay? And Sadaf Jaffer is happy to enable the madness that's going on these college campuses and be an apologist and be an enabler of these jihadists. That's what they are, folks. Okay. And by the way, this idea that Sadaf Jaffer wants to say, and you know, the usual low-hanging fruit. Oh, I didn't want to serve anymore because of just, again, evoking the typical left-wing low-hanging fruit, you know, gender and race or religion. Oh, I'm a Muslim woman and I was subjected to so much hate. No, the reason you chose not to run again, honey, is because we all know that the sort of the county parties or the county chairs didn't want you back in the legislature. So it was easier to just sort of not run for re-election and just sort of let the county party chairs and the other influential politicos in the 16th legislative district make that call, right? So don't be fooled by this nonsense that, oh, I didn't want to run again because I just didn't feel I was appreciated, or as a woman and as a Muslim and as a woman of color, that somehow, okay, that somehow Sadaf was, you know, pushed out the door. No, folks, she wasn't pushed out on anything. Okay. I'm glad she was shown the door, of course. But it's not based on her race, her gender, or what religion she practiced. It's just the fact that within that apparatus in the 16th legislative district, and again, within the Democrat Party, within that region of New Jersey, they want to go with different candidates. That's it. But don't be fooled by Sadaf being disingenuous. Okay? Because again, this is a woman who is happy to enable what's going on our college campuses. A woman who is glad to enable anti-Semitic rhetoric on campuses. Let me remind Sadaf about what goes on college campuses. Okay? As you can see there, once again, referencing Megyn Kelly. She's not wrong, because again, a lot of these students at not just this campus, but campuses all around the country are embracing Sharia law as if women in New Jersey or New York or across the country know the first thing about Sharia law. Okay? If it's so great, why don't you listen? I'm happy to drive you to the airport, not buy your plane ticket. You can buy that on your own. But fly to one of these countries, fly to one of these hellholes in the Middle East, in these Islamic societies, and go evoke all your feminism and go evoke all your left-wing virtue signaling nonsense in those countries. Let's see how far you get, folks. All right, to all the ladies out there. Because, folks, what we're seeing now in 2024 on college campuses, folks, this has basically become the BLM riots of 2020. The only difference is they're just wearing headscarves now. That's the only difference. It's BLM with headscarves. That is going to be the spring and summer of 2024 on college campuses. Okay. Speaking of college campuses, and again, maybe Sadaf needs a history lesson. Okay, so just look behind me, honey, and here's a history lesson for you. The left-hand side of that photo is it's in black and white. That's Austria in 1938, where Nazis stood on the steps of Vienna University in Austria, preventing Jewish students from entering the campus. That's 1938. Again, look at that photo. Now, the picture on the right-hand side is Columbia University in 2024. Once again, pro-Palestinian, apologists, and jihadists stopping Jewish students from entering the campus of Columbia University. Folks, and again, this goes out to you, Sadaf, because again, it seems like you need a history lesson and a refresher. And for everybody out there that's pro-Palestinian and pro-jihadist and pro-enabling all this nonsense on college campuses, let me refresh your memory. If you ever sit back and wonder, Fernando, how the Holocaust ever happened? It happened, folks, with subtle little stunts like the ones in 1938. So if you ever wonder, oh, that can't happen again. Oh, really? What are we seeing on our college campuses? Again, folks, that's 1938 in Vienna, Austria. But that's also 2024 at Columbia University and campuses all across this country. But again, Sadat would rather virtue signal and tell you, oh, Islamophobia is on the rise. No, folks, what is on the rise, and we're seeing it because statistics prove it, it's not Islamophobia that's on the rise, it's anti-Semitism. Not just in New Jersey, not just in New York, but across the country. But again, Sadat would rather virtue signal and bitch and moan about how bad Muslims have it on college campuses when we all know it's Jewish students who have it worse. Okay? And this is, again, and I don't mind saying this out loud because I'm a person of color too. It's yet another reminder about why Sadat Jaffer is a vile, despicable anti-Semite. Why she's a vile, despicable woman in New Jersey politics. Okay? And good luck trying to cancel me because I didn't lie. I didn't say anything false. I didn't say anything inaccurate. What I just said about Sadat Jaffer is absolutely true. Again, folks, I'm not here to coddle you. There are some people out there, there's some clowns and ham and eggers in New Jersey politics and activism and whatever that want to coddle people. I'm not here to coddle anybody. Okay, I'm here to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. And sometimes the truth needs to be said for people that have forgotten what the truth is, like Sadat Jaffer. Because, folks, what we're seeing on college campuses is an absolute disgrace. Okay? Just look at that banner on the campus of Columbia University. Better yet, let me tell you what's going on not just Columbia University, but campuses all across the country. Folks, let's take you to George Washington University and this disgusting display.
This is the statue of George Washington on George Washington University's campus. And this statue happens to be in the middle of the pro-Palestinian encampment on the university.
Look at that, folks. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Literally the statue that has been erected in honor of that university, in honor of George. By the way, again, maybe Sadat needs a refresher again. George Washington, again, and you're seeing these idiotic students with graffiti saying warmongering and warmonger. Yes, because George Washington was a warmonger. Yeah, that's what the British thought, right? As General George Washington and the colonists and Americans were looking to declare itself independent from the tyranny of King George in England. But that's what these idiotic students want to do. They want to desecrate the statue of George Washington, put Palestinian flags on it, and just be a nuisance. Think I'm exaggerating? Let's go to another campus. Why not? Let's go here. Okay?
Allah. نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم.
Folks, that's what college campuses are becoming. That's what they're becoming. Indoctrination camps for the weak-minded and for faculty that are enabling this stuff. Okay? This sort of fanaticism, this sort of radicalism. Sadat, by the way, you want to talk about what's insufferable and what's exhausting. What's exhausting is having to listen on social media to anti-Semites like you that enable and apologize for this sort of radical behavior on college campuses. Folks, really? This sort of fanaticism and radical behavior? Where have I seen that before? Oh, yes, Sadaf, by the way, you know, if you ever left your little cushy little house, well, for someone like myself, living in Hudson County, yeah, the skyline that I look at every day, yeah, that's been different for about 21 years now. It looked a hell of a lot different on a Tuesday morning in 2001 in September than it does now. Because here's a newsflash. It wasn't Christians or Buddhists or Jews that wanted to weaponize a religion and kill thousands of Americans. Okay? So for someone like Sadaf to comment at anyone with her virtue signaling nonsense, folks, what's going on our college campuses is disgusting. If you look at Sadaf Jafar's social media, that's also disgusting. But you know what's even more disappointing about someone like her is the fact of anyone taking her seriously. Okay? And again, I don't care how it sounds because I'm going to talk to him in July. But folks, what is Mayor Stephen Fulop doing? Even endorsing a radical anti-Semite like Sadaf Jafar, even trying to embrace her or what she stands for. Okay? Now, again, these aren't my words. These are Stephen Fulop's words. Okay? And what's interesting is looking at how he holds her in high regard. Apparently, going with the premise that Jafar would endorse Mayor Fulop for governor, and consequently, he appointed her to his campaign policy team. Now, again, Mayor, with all due respect, what policy exactly is this anti-Semite going to even give you that's remotely productive? Okay. Mayor Stephen, I know you personally. She's a rabid anti-Semite. You can see it on her social media. You can see her complete silence on what's going on our college campuses. What's going on at Harvard. What's going on at Columbia, at NYU, at Barnard, the New School, at USC. Folks, take your pick. There are college campuses all across this country having to coddle these jihadists on campus, these apologists, these enablers. Mayor, with all due respect, what you're doing by even embracing someone like Sadaf Jafar is you're enabling an apologist. You're enabling a jihadist. Steve, I got love for you, man. But come on. Especially with someone with your background, your ethnic background, and your religious background, to even embrace someone like Sadaf Jafar, that's a bad look, Steve. I'm sorry. I don't care how it sounds. It's a bad look. And what possible policy prescriptions could Sadaf Jafar even offer your campaign? What? Coddling illegals? That's what she liked doing when she was in the legislature, and thankfully only there for one term. Right? Weaponizing reproductive rights when we all know it's been codified into state law. The usual bitching and moaning by insufferable feminists like Sadaf Jafar. Is this what we're supposed to embrace for policy? Stephen, do better. Get rid of this clown. She's not worth it. And she certainly is not a good look for your campaign. Okay? A rabid anti-Semite like Sadaf Jafar should be anywhere near any gubernatorial campaign or any policy campaign. Okay? Sadaf, listen, and here's an open challenge for you, honey. You're more than welcome to come on the show. I'll give you an hour commercial free, and we can have a debate about what's going on our college campuses. But this isn't a prediction, folks. Here's a spoiler. Sadaf won't even come anywhere near a microphone because she'd have to sit there and somehow defend what's going on these college campuses. Desecrating statues like George Washington, the father of our United States, the man who helped lead the defeat of the British Army during the American Revolution. Desecrating college campuses. Thinking that it's okay to pull down the American flag and hoist up a Palestinian flag at Harvard or at Columbia or at NYU. That's who Sadaf Jafar is. an enabler of jihadists and all these apologists on college campuses. And shame on the colleges and universities that enable this behavior. And shame on Sadaf for enabling and being an apologist for this irresponsible behavior. Mayor, love y'all. Do better. Get rid of this. This is trash. This is trash. You want to run a respectable gubernatorial campaign? You're doing that. You're raising money. You're talking about policy. You're raising concerns about what's going on with funding from Trenton. All valid things. I'll give you credit on that, Stephen. No question. Do better than having this woman on your campaign team. You can do better than that. Okay? Just one more insufferable woman in New Jersey politics. We don't need more of them. We need less of them. Because again, folks, when we talk about what's going on on college campuses, folks, now more than ever, it's a reminder that we have to stand with Israel, that we have to stand with Jewish students, okay? That we have to stand with these marginalized communities. Again, folks, I'll say it again. That photo I mentioned and referenced in 1938 of Nazis staying outside of a university steps, stopping Jewish students from entering the campus, folks, it's no different. Today's modern Nazis are pro-Palestinians. That's right, I said it. Today's Nazis are all these pro-Palestinian activists and apologists and jihadists and defenders. That's what they are. Folks, again, it's not hyperbole. This is not me being hysterical. This is stating fact. If you ever wonder why anti-Semitism was running rampant throughout Europe, it's because of stunts like that. The reason anti-Semitism is running rampant on our college campuses is because of stunts we're seeing today. And you know who enables it? You know who apologizes it for? Sadaf Jaffer. Good riddance to her from the New Jersey State Legislature. Unfortunately, it's not good riddance to her on social media. She'll keep being an enabler. She'll keep being an apologist. She'll keep defending jihadists and anti-Semites at every turn. Folks, it's not opinion. That's fact. And once again, now more than ever, we need to defend Israel and stand with Israel and stand with our Jewish community. Now more than ever, folks. Anti-Semitism, it's not on the decline. It's on the rise. We need to be aware of it. And we need to stand up against it. Not stand with pro-Palestinian activists, all these jihadists, all these enablers and apologists and defenders. No, folks. If these universities had any spine whatsoever, you clear these campus quads, you suspend them, and even expel them. That's how you teach these entitled kids today that stupidity has consequences. When it comes to stupidity, let's be honest, folks. Just one more insufferable woman in New Jersey politics. That now includes Sadaf Jaffer. Folks, some troubling times we live in when we have clowns like Sadaf Jaffer. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, before we call it an evening, I do want to send my condolences to the family of Donald Payne Jr., U.S. representative who tragically passed last week at only the age of 65. I was aware that Representative Payne had suffered a heart attack some months ago and had been on a ventilator. Now, while there is nothing that Representative Payne Jr. and I would ever agree on, one thing I can never deny is his commitment to his district, his commitment to the Black community, and his commitment to people overall. Again, probably nothing we could ever agree on. But one thing I know we could agree on is representing people. And that's what Donald Payne did. So to his family, his loved ones, his friends, his colleagues, my sincerest condolences here on this program to Donald Payne. Again, who served honorably in the House of Representatives. Again, didn't always like the positions he took or legislation that he voted for or even policies that he took a stand for. But what I will say is Donald Payne was a man who served with distinction, he served with honor, and he served. And that's something that we should all applaud across party lines. I want to give my condolences to him, his family, and his loved ones during this very difficult time. Donald Payne Jr., folks, was 65. when he passed last week. And that's our show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, to check out all of our great social media content, check it out by going to jerseyfirst.org/TV. And of course, make sure you like us on Facebook. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, subscribe to the Jersey First YouTube page. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First TV and take it with you anywhere at any time. And of course, I can't say enough how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media, folks. That's right. It is Jersey First TV. Brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative, hosted by the amazing Elizabeth Nader, premiere every Thursday. And of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Melillo and Stephen Rumbolo, premiere every Thursday as well. And also brand new episodes of Real Talk via Jersey First TV, premiere every Monday. Again, check your local listings for time. Obviously, Eastern Standard Time. And folks, I can't say enough about what we're doing, making a difference, as always, in Garden State Media. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always real talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 50 Latino as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative, and certainly now more than ever, folks, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State Media, because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of blatant journalistic deception, especially here with the establishment media in the state of New Jersey. And of course, folks, I'm the most handsome face that runs the place. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Enjoy the rest of April, folks, as we, again, it's only a couple of days left. And then, as you know, it's gonna be May. Again, a little pop culture reference. Hopefully you got that one. And of course, coming up this weekend, May the 4th be with you. For all you Star Wars fans, again, I know I'll be watching some marathons over the weekend. Folks, again, thank you for sharing the replays. Thank you for tuning in live every Monday night here on Jersey First TV. Again, I can't say enough how thankful I am to all of you for doing so. So again, take care of yourselves, folks. Please party responsibly. And always remember, if you can't be good, be bad, baby. We'll see you next time here on Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV. Of course, thanks for stopping by, and stay classy, everyone.